in the heart of the ancient forest of Kibuko, where the trees grew so tall they seemed to hold up the sky. There flowed a river that appeared on no map and could be found by no compass. The elders called it Magia Busara, the river of wisdom. Legend said that anyone who drank from its waters would receive eternal wisdom. They would know the answer to every question, understand every mystery, see the truth in every heart. But the river was protected by a guardian spirit, and only those who proved themselves worthy would be allowed to drink. Many had searched for it over the centuries, scholars hoping to unlock the secrets of the universe, warriors seeking the knowledge to become invincible, merchants dreaming of wealth through perfect decisions, but few ever found it. And those who did rarely spoke of what they discovered there, until the year 3 seekers journeyed together into the forest, each carrying their own reasons, each believing themselves ready for the gift of eternal wisdom. Their names were Taiwo, Kihind, and Amara. Taiwo was a scholar, brilliant and proud, who had studied in the great libraries and debated with the finest minds. He believed wisdom belonged to those intelligent enough to grasp it. Kihind was a warrior, strong and ambitious, who had won every battle and conquered every challenge. He believed wisdom belonged to those brave enough to claim it. Amara was a healer, gentle and thoughtful, who had spent her life serving in a small village, tending to the sick and listening to the troubles of others. She believed wisdom belonged to those humble enough to receive it. Together, they walked into the forest of Kibuko, following the old songs that spoke of silver waters and a voice that asked questions no book could answer. The forest was older than kingdoms, denser than memory. Vines thick as a man's waist hung from branches that blocked out the sun. Strange birds called in languages that sounded almost like words. The air itself felt heavy with watching. For 3 days they walked, following signs that seemed to shift and change. A path that led somewhere yesterday led nowhere today. A marker carved into bark would be on a different tree the next morning. "This is a test," Taiwo declared, examining a moss-covered stone. "The forest is testing our intelligence, our ability to solve its puzzles." "No," Kihind countered, hand on his spear. "It's testing our courage, our willingness to push forward no matter what." Amara said nothing. She simply walked, paying attention to things the others ignored. The Waysoten flowers only grew near water. The direction birds flew at dusk. Amara said nothing. She simply walked, paying attention to things the others ignored. The way certain flowers only grew near water. The direction birds flew at dusk. The feeling in her chest that pulled her left when logic said, go right. On the 3rd evening, as the sun painted the canopy gold and crimson, they heard it, the sound of water running over stones. Musical and clear. Unlike any river they had heard before, they ran toward it, pushing through the final barrier of ferns and thorns. And there it was, the river of wisdom. It flowed through a clearing that glowed with its own light, though no sun reached to the forest floor. The water was silver, literally silver, catching and holding light that came from nowhere and everywhere. Where it touched the stones, they sparkled. Where it pooled, the surface reflected not the world above, but something deeper, as if showing the truth beneath appearances. And standing in the center of the river, knee-deep in the flowing silver, was the guardian. She was ancient and young at once, with skin like polished ebony and eyes that held galaxies. She wore nothing but the water itself, which flowed around her like living silk. When she spoke, her voice was every grandmother's wisdom and every child's curiosity combined. 3 seekers, 3 hearts, 3 reasons. Only one may drink from the river of wisdom. Choose who among you is most worthy. Taiwo stepped forward immediately. I am most worthy. I have devoted my entire life to the pursuit of knowledge. I have read every text, studied every philosophy, mastered every discipline. My mind is a temple of learning. With eternal wisdom, I could teach the world, elevate humanity, bring enlightenment to all who live in darkness. The guardian smiled, neither warm nor cold. And what question would you ask the river first, scholar? I would ask the nature of existence itself, the fundamental truth that underlies all reality, the answer that would make sense of everything. Drink, then. Taiwo knelt at the river's edge, cupped his hands, and brought the silver water to his lips. The moment it touched his tongue, his eyes went wide. He gasped. His body went rigid. Then he began to weep. "What's wrong?" Kenji demanded, gripping his spear. But Taiwo couldn't speak. He simply stared into the water, tears streaming down his face, his hands trembling. Every connection. It's too much. Too much. I can see why the leaf falls, and why the child cries, and why the star dies, and it's all connected, and it never stops. And I can't. The guardian looked at Kihind. Do you still wish to drink, warrior? Kihind hesitated, watching his companions break down. But pride won over caution. I am stronger than he is. I can bear what he cannot. I am most worthy because I have conquered every challenge I've faced. I've never surrendered, never fled, never failed. With eternal wisdom, I would become the greatest leader the world has known. I would make decisions that could never be questioned. I would rule with perfect justice. And what question would you ask the river first? I would ask how to achieve ultimate power, how to become invincible, how to make it so no one could ever stand against me. Drink, then. He collapsed to his knees, hands pressed to his temples, overwhelmed by the infinite wisdom now flooding his mind. Kihind drank deeply, defiantly, as if daring the river to defeat him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his face went pale. His hands fell to his sides. His spear clattered to the stones. What do you see, warrior? The guardian asked. I see every battle I've won, every opponent I've defeated, and I see their faces, their families, the children left without fathers, the wives left without husbands, the mothers left without sons. I see the consequences of every choice I made in the name of strength. I see that power built on others' suffering is not strength. It's weakness, and I've been weak my whole life. He sank down beside Taiwo, his warrior's pride shattered by the weight of true understanding. The guardian turned to Amara. And you, healer? Do you still wish to drink? The guardian turned to Amara. And you, healer, do you still wish to drink? Amara looked at her two companions, broken by the very gift they sought. She looked at the silver river, beautiful and terrible. She looked at the guardian, patient and eternal. May I ask a question first? You may. What happened to them? Why did the wisdom hurt them instead of help them? They asked for wisdom, but sought something else. The scholar wanted validation for his intelligence. The warrior wanted justification for his power. They drank not to serve wisdom, but to serve themselves. And wisdom, true wisdom, shows us not what we want to see, but what we need to see. It reveals our own truth before it reveals the world's truth. They were not ready to face themselves. Then how can anyone be ready? That is the right question, child, and it is the first truly wise thing anyone has said in this clearing today. Amara knelt at the water's edge, but she did not drink immediately. Instead, she looked at her own reflection in the silver surface and asked herself the question the others had not. Why do I want eternal wisdom? She thought of her village, of Mama Ashanti, with the persistent cough, of little Kofi, who couldn't sleep without nightmares, of Baba Mensa, whose grief over his dead wife was eating him alive, of all the people she tried to help but couldn't always heal. I want wisdom, she said aloud, not to prove I'm worthy of it, but to be more useful to others, to understand how to help when my skills aren't enough, to know which words will heal wounds that medicine cannot touch, to see the connections between things so I can prevent suffering before it starts. And if the wisdom is too much, if it breaks you, as it broke them, then at least I tried, at least I reached for something beyond myself. But I don't think it will break me, because I'm not seeking wisdom to serve my own pride. I'm seeking it to serve others. There's a difference. There is indeed. Drink, healer, and let us see what you truly seek. Amara cupped her hands and brought the silver water to her lips. The wisdom came like rain after a drought, gentle at first, then stronger, then overwhelming, but in a different way than it had overwhelmed the others. Amara saw everything, the connections between all living things, the patterns of cause and effect, the reasons behind the reasons, the truth beneath every lie and the lie beneath some truths. But unlike the others, she didn't try to hold it all at once. She didn't try to possess it or control it. She simply let it flow through her like the river itself, taking what she needed and letting the rest pass by. She saw that Tiwo's suffering came from trying to understand everything all at once, from believing he could contain infinite knowledge in a finite mind. She saw that Kihine's anguish came from finally seeing the human cost of his victories, the weight of responsibility he'd never wanted to acknowledge, and she saw what they needed. She turned from the river and knelt beside Taiwo first. She placed her hand on his shoulder and whispered, "You don't have to know everything. You only have to know what matters. Let go of the rest." Wisdom is not about collecting all knowledge. It's about recognizing what knowledge serves life. Tiwo's breathing slowed. His trembling eased. The torrent of information in his mind began to organize itself, to filter down to what was useful and beautiful, rather than overwhelming. She moved to Kehind next. You don't have to carry everyone's pain. You only have to acknowledge it and learn from it. Strength is not about never failing. It's about growing each time you do. You were not weak. You were learning. We all are. Kehind's shoulders, which had been hunched in shame, slowly straightened. The guilt that had crushed him began to transform into understanding, into resolve to do better. Both men looked at Amara with wonder and gratitude. How? Taiwo asked. How can you bear it when we could not? Because I didn't drink to gain wisdom. I drank to share it. When you try to keep wisdom for yourself, it's like trying to hold running water in your fists. It escapes, and you're left with nothing but wet hands. But when you let it flow through you to others, you become part of something larger than yourself. You become the river, not the cup. The guardian stepped out of the water, and as she did, the silver surface began to fade. The glow dimmed. The enchantment was leaving the river, returning to ordinary water, flowing over ordinary stones. The river of wisdom only appears once in a generation, the guardian said. And now its work here is done. Amara, you have drunk deeply and truly. You will carry what you learned for the rest of your life. Use it well. I will. But what about them? They too have drunk, and they too carry wisdom now, though not the kind they expected. They learned the most important lesson, that wisdom without humility is just clever foolishness. That knowledge without compassion is just weaponized information. They will remember this day. They will be better for it. The guardian looked at all three of them. Go now. Return to the world. The forest will let you pass easily, for you no longer need to be tested. You have already been transformed. The three seekers made their way out of the forest of Kibuko in a single day. The path clear and straight, where before it had been tangled and confusing. They parted ways at the forest's edge, each returning to their own life, but each carrying something new. Taiwo went back to his libraries, but he no longer sought to know everything. Instead, he began teaching, sharing what he knew with patience and kindness, understanding that wisdom grows when it's planted in others, not when it's hoarded. Kehind laid down his spear and became a counselor to young warriors, teaching them that true strength lies in protecting others, not dominating them. He spoke often of responsibility and consequences, and many lives were saved by his new wisdom. Amara. She returned to her village and continued healing, but now she understood not just how to treat symptoms, but how to see the deeper causes, how to listen not just to what people said, but to what they meant, how to heal not just bodies, but hearts and spirits. Word of her wisdom spread. People traveled from far villages to seek her counsel, but she never claimed to have all the answers. She simply said, "I drank from a river once. It taught me that wisdom is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing what matters and letting the rest flow by." Eternal wisdom is not about possessing all knowledge. It's about having the humility to receive truth, the wisdom to recognize what matters, and the generosity to share what you've learned. Those who seek wisdom to elevate themselves above others will be crushed by its weight, but those who seek wisdom to serve others will find it light as water, flowing through them to nourish the world. Remember this: the river gave each seeker exactly what they needed, not what they wanted. The scholar needed to learn he couldn't know everything. The warrior needed to face his own consequences. And the healer needed to understand that wisdom is not a treasure to hoard, but a gift to share.